Brandberg from the other side. We've driven to Uys and picked up a few supplies. Now we're driving around the other side of the Brandberg mountain, and we're going to try and find the Messim Crater. We didn't have much luck with the Doris Crater. We drove all the way there, we landed up in a canyon, and we walked in the heat for a couple of kilometers. Didn't really see a crater. The other interesting thing in this area are these aloes. There are literally thousands of them littering the desert floor. I'm on a keen lookout for the green quartzite called fluoride, which is being sold by every second stall owner, holder along the road, and there's tons of it, but I can't find it in the veld. Last view of the Brandberg as we head towards the Messim Crater. This sort of looks exciting, and George tells me to hold tight, and if you look ahead you can see where the tracks go, but I don't think we'll be taking that route up the dune. And just before we get to the steep climb, it looks like our road swings a left, thank goodness. Got to get past that mountain somehow, so we've turned a right as the GPS tells us, and we'll see where this goes. And this is the way over our dune, over our mountain. The going is good so far. Onwards and upwards. Oh. Elephant rocks. That's what I call these. Elephant rocks. And we're at the top of the mountain. We're going to go over the other side. Far below is our road. Far, far below. And down we go. Down we go. There's still a nice steep down coming up. According to the GPS, we are now in the middle of the Messim Crater, and that the surrounding hills should be forming a circle around us, with the depression in the middle being the whole of the crater. So we will be looking up. All the information about this crater, because we've been to the salt pan and we thought that was the crater. There are no signboards. The GPS gives multiple different points as the place where the crater is, and this is the final one that we've come to. And a crater is either formed by a volcano or a meteorite. I believe on Google Earth, this phenomena where we are here shows a huge circle in the hills surrounding us. Whatever it is, if it's a meteorite, it's very well buried or broken up. And if it's a volcano, it's definitely inactive. Past this, we have the desert, which is just south of the Skeleton Coast. But the same desert, the same coastline. And we'll make a decision shortly as to whether we're going to camp out here or whether we're going to carry on driving down to the coast. The wind is howling, and that will affect my decision as to whether we carry on today or tomorrow morning when the wind is likely to be less intense. We're camping next to this guy tonight, and a whole lot of his friends down the valley. We found a rock face with a bit of wind shelter. George is opening another beer after the first one fell over, and he just wants some quiet time. I am walking around looking at all these welwitschias growing in this dry riverbed in the desert. George wants some shade, and I want the wind luff, and we have the best of both, because here is the wind luff. Here is the wind luff up against the rock face, and George has his shade here in the vehicle shadow. We're upstairs early tonight. The wind and the sand from the desert, the black desert. It's actually almost 8 o'clock already, or maybe even after. We've had dinner and coffee and some chocolate, and we are upstairs going to play cards in bed. This is our cozy bed. And our view. And yes, that is the ocean. We're at mile 108. We've driven out of the desert straight down to the sea, and a beautiful calmish looking ocean lies in front of us. And this is the famous Salt Road going north towards the Skeleton Park, which we've been bumping up against over the last few weeks. And now we're going to go in here because this is supposed to be a main fishing camp, and George thinks he's going to get coffee and apple strudel. Ha 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 ha. I'm thinking that we're not going to get much, and that is the most JoJo tanks I've ever seen on one stand. Looks like there could be 4, 8, 12, 16 JoJo tanks, and some staff housing. Bad lighting there, sorry. And we'll go and see how many campers there are here. I thought it looked pretty empty, but as we get down to the actual camp, it's pretty busy. This is a real fishing camp with people parked all the way up and all the way down. And this is reminiscent of Torre Bay. A regular beach camp.
Hello, morning.
Now they've made Winchester Free State. You can come in a normal car. The most important thing in your camp down here is your wind shelter. and Bruno's on the beach, and we're going to put our toes in the cold Atlantic Ocean.
And our westmost point, Jackie getting her toes wet. Fishing village, mile 108. Very much like Tora Bay, same sort of thing. Actually different.
And here in Namibia, you're allowed to drive on the beach. And Bruno gets to drive on the beach. Our tires are still fairly hard at 2.1, so we're taking the high road for now to get used to it, and we'll see how it goes. As George starts getting the feel of things, and Bruno floats over the sand, and we're almost touching the ocean. Tide is coming in, so we'll take note of that.
Bruno.
We've decided to have coffee and breakfast on the beach. It's a lovely day now. The wind has died down a little bit. It's very acceptable, but in order to get out here, George has to let the tires down a bit, so they're still a bit hard for soft sand driving. This is what we've come along, and there'll be coffee and breakfast over here in the wind luff, as I say, which has died down a fair bit. So we'll get all the coffee katunda going. And there's something called the Dead Sea swimhole, which we're on our way to. But I have been quite amazed at the amount of pink quartz rocks that we've seen on the road here. And we'll see if we can pick any up on the way back. There's rocky outcrops of pink quartz everywhere. Could this be the Dead Sea swim hole? And yes, it is the Dead Sea swim hole, because there you have people floating and swimming. And what I'd like to know before I get in that water is, how cold is it? This is right in the middle of the desert, by the way.